Good morning to everybody. I am Alessandra Venturini, the holder of the Jean Monnet Chair European Migration Studies, hosted by the University of Torino and financed by the European Commission. I'm very glad to open today the last seminar of the series Cocumint. Cocumint stands for the satellite seminar of the Chair, Consumption of Cultural Goods as Driver of Migrant Integration. And the speaker of the last chair is Andrea Ricci, who has followed all the seminar, who is the tutor of the chair, so is working with me and with the various speakers in organizing and contributing to this field. Let me introduce him briefly. He is a very clever graduate student in international science. He is interested in governance of migration, multi-level governance. His research focused on the impact of migration governance and the impact of innovative integration policy. And for that reason, today he will speak about the BAC project, that's mean Barolo Art for Community, which is organized and directed by the Social Community Theater of the University of Torino. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor, and good evening to everybody. And thank you, Professor, for the opportunity to present here our work. This is the first time for me in presenting our work in a seminar like this. So I'm thankful to everybody helped me in achieving this work and voila. I start sharing the screen with my presentation. Okay. As you can see, my presentation, my work is on the benefits of singing in choir on well-being. We started from the BAC project, and we thought it was useful, a survey of the work already done on the team, in order to understand which limits and which potentialities this theme could have had. So this is a brief summary of what I will present in my presentation. We will start with the aim of the survey, then we will pass to the state of the art of the research on the theme. Then we will have a look on studies on the effect of group singing on social bridging and bonding, and we will see also the definition of these two sociological category. Then we will pass to analyze and assess the impact on multicultural choice on participants, on well-being participants, and then we will show some conclusion on our work. So let me introduce a little bit the context in which we will work. We have work also. We have tried to collect and assess studies and academic work whose focus was choice ensemble, group singing, and well-being, with a particular focus on active participation, so differing this from passive music listening and passive activities, and worthwhile on multicultural groups. The final aim is have an understanding on migrants' integration through the consumption of cultural goods. And this is also the fil rouge linking this presentation and this work with the Cocumint seminar series. So the aim of the survey, I identified four principal points to highlight. The first aim of our survey is to identify best methodologies or tool to measure group singing impacts and the effects. I thought it was important to highlight and to put in red to measure, because it is important to understand that The indicators I will present in further are intended to be indicators of measurement, non-symbolic indicators or something else. So we tried to measure, to identify way of measuring impacts in different categories, and we will see the indicators and their effects on different dimensions. The second aim of the research is to identify, to show the links between the outcomes of group singing and the success of foreigners, of foreigner participants in entering their destination country's labor market. Then another objective is to investigate how participation in group singing activities might help tailor individual capacities and skills, both soft and hard skills. And finally, an important aim of this survey is to pinpoint solid empirical basis for integration practices. As Professor Venturini said before, one of my research interest is understand how integration practices could be more effective, and so it is interesting to understand how multicultural choice can have an effect. But in regards of state of the art of the research, we found a vast body of literature about choice, group singing, and their effect on well-being. As I said before, several literature reviews has been carried out, has been done, but they mostly concern on music listening in particular, as a therapy for severe diseases such as Alzheimer, Parkinson, and so on, and in particular for medical purposes. We found also strong evidence on the correlation between choir and group singing and well-being, but we identify also three limitations and three possible, horizons to deepen the research. The first point we highlight is that measurement tools, we found as heterogeneous. We identify principally mainly three different categories that we will see after. We found also great diversity in samples. In particular, we found limited numbers of people involved in experiments. We found different countries involved and interested in this field of research. We find experiment with a different duration and different composition of sample by gender. What we found is that mainly women participate in this kind of activity. The last point we identified for the research already done is that there is a lack in detailed analysis of treatment. So this the result is difficult. The difficulty to draw precise conclusion on the outcomes and on studies. But as I said before, I started in analyzing different typology of indicators. I identified this first group, and I have write a brief definition for psychophysiological indicators. We refer to psychophysiological indicators as the class of tools capable of registering all those brain responses to specific stimulus. In this case, particularly with singing practice and with other people. What we found is that automatic responses an individual is not able to control. So when we refer to brain responses to specific stimulus, people is not capable of control them, and so affecting his or unconscious driven behavior and perception of her or himself and the society around him. For giving briefly some features, we found mainly quantitative indicators, and we found that these indicators employing empirical tests, for example, blood draws or instruments such as the blood cuff pressure measurement, as proxy for other types of change, more challenging to evaluate, such as stress level, pain level, hormonal induced feeling of well-being, and so on. Here I reported some methodology, some indicators research highlights the most, but I'm not really confident with this argument. I reported here the principal effect, the principal result highlighted by these indicators, and are reported here in this table. If you are interested, please see it after. What about psychophysiological indicators we found in previous studies? As I said, we found the use of proxies in the aim of simplification of the results and interpretation of the results. We find also an interesting thing, in my opinion, that well-being is slightly increasing thanks to group singing, but increased more when coupled with other activities. We found, for example, then that chatting and then singing help increasing more stress reduction or other affect or well-being feelings. The same has been done on singer versus non-singer, with singing before dancing and vice versa, praying, etc. We found also samples with different backgrounds, both within a study and among different studies. But what we found, and we will see it after, is that a difficulty of this kind of interpretation is that samples are always limited into a group characterized by the same belonging, the same background, so are difficult to comparable. Is not all this background, these people are not always comparable, and so the samples are different, and so not always comparable. The same for experimental conditions. What we found also is, in every study we analyzed, is that a small number of people were involved in the activity. So statistically, the outcomes of this research, these experiments, are not too solid in some way. But subjective indicators, here we found the second group of indicators. Here we can define it as less empirical in some way, but we see they are made up of mainly qualitative indicators. We will see there is a lot of different tools developed by academics, by researchers, in order to analyze and assess different dimensions of psychological individual well-being. For example, we can see, I put it the three principal tools we found in literary reviews we analyzed, and I have gathered them under the category provided by Zentner and Erola, defined standardized mood and emotion scale. Because why it is? Because both PANAS and POMS are made up of a list of different adjectives. For example, PANAS made up of 2 lists, a list of 10 positive adjectives and 10 negative affects. They are standardized, so in every research you can find they use PANAS. You can find the same list of adjective, but aim to evaluate different aspects. So they are standardized, as the definition said. So on the contrary, the Likert scale, also here we find a standardized scale, but here we find, as I write here, 5 or 7 point scale with two extreme, the mostly used for evaluate pain level, stress level, and starting from nothing at all to absolutely. So it's a value scale from 0 to 5 or 0 to 7, for example. POMS, it's similar to PANAS, but are not made up of list of adjective, but a list of moods. So I reported here some example in order to understand better what we are talking about. But in my opinion, the most interesting indicators we have to evaluate is this category, the non-verbal evaluation tools. I reported here two images. The first is the visual analog scale. We found here that there is a comparison between the Likert scale on the top and the visual analog scale. Here we find the same categories, the same different categories, but in the visual analog scale, we found that it is coupled with pictures of faces expressing different emotions. So this could be interesting for our aim of research. We found here another example of this, and this kind of indicator, these measurement indicators, are used mainly for individuals affected by autism and other severe diseases affecting mainly speaking abilities. So my question is, could be this kind of indicator potentially interesting to be used with migrants to overcome language problems? For this, I said before, this could be an interesting starting point for our research. Here, I choose to provide another interesting example, because here faces, expressing faces, emoticons are replaced by circles, two circles, one for the self and one for the other. The different dimension and intersection between circles can be used as a graphical proxy in some ways, in order to identify the relationship, the felt relationship between me and another person around me. So it could be interesting assess the effectivity of this kind of instrument in, for example, in research or in experiment done with foreigners or people with diseases affecting speaking capacities and so on. So I found interesting, and I choose to put it on my slides. The last category of indicators are we defined psychosocial, in order to refer to those instruments which focus mainly on individual features, orienting and carrying out a social space in which people could feel comfortable. This series of indicators want to assess if the beneficiaries of the experiment may feel an active part of society, and she has the right coordinates to construct positive relationship within the community. We found a series of scales, questionnaire, indexes, and methods of analysis, mostly qualitative. Instrument proceeding hand in hand with subjective indicators, but differentiating in aims and methodologies and objective. And we found important convergence towards the concept of social bonding and bridging activities. But I think it is important to give a little clarification, because I want to highlight the fil rouge orienting our research. We start from solid empirical measurement indicators such as psychophysiological indicators, and we want to cast light on the measurement of impacts and effects multicultural choice have on people. And in particular, we want to assess social bonding and bridging effects this kind of choice can release in participants. So we have to, here I put some definition of the bridging and bonding effects, in which bridging effect could be resumed as a vertical link between people with different classes, races, religions, and so on. And on the contrary, bonding effect is a more horizontal link between people within the same with the same shared identity and belonging and so on. Here I reported some example of tools used for analyzing social bridging and bonding effects, but I don't want to bother you with this kind of things, but are interesting because they are in some way, I said it after, in some way an example of hybridation between indicators, because we have to consider in some way relational self-esteem effect provided by indicators, subjective and psychosocial indicators. But we need to use the methodology involving the psychophysiological, subjective, and psychosocial well-being. So we need to hybridate methodologies and tools in order to understanding better general effects of multicultural choice and foreigner involvement in this kind of cultural activity. And we need easier well-being scale and more in tune with the audience. So for these, I put here the third point. We need to overcome communication barriers, mainly when we relate with foreigners, of migrants, or different people with different backgrounds. Yeah, I put here some tips for understanding better multicultural choice and the research on them. I think, and I start from the work of Daikin, that we need different strategy. As I said before, we need to, on the one hand, enhancing the use of biochemical tests in order to give solid empirical basis to our research. But at the same time, we have to use subjective well-being indicators, psychosocial well-being indicators, offering more interesting views on the self and the self relationing with the other and the society. But we have to update them. We have to understand that we can find an insight, a point of view, considering multicultural choice as a vehicle for integration. So we have to favor the use of non-verbal evaluation tools, updating what is already existent in order to liberate and rely on extra or non-linguistic forms of communication. I report here some conclusion we found at the end of our study. We concluded that studies result less and less effective in approaching the theme we investigate around, so multicultural choice and integration of migrants. We understood that is needed closer attention for studies on multicultural choice, highlighting strengths and limits, and the need for triggering new field of interest. I put here, I don't know how to say, an idea we had so that little attention is given to choir contents and repertoire. This is an input in some way. But here the most important conclusion, I think, that the contamination among methodologies, among instrument tools, measurement is needed, is imperative, but it has to be adaptive, because we can't rely on instrument one size fits all, but we have to adapt the instruments we already have to the audience we want to assess or to study. And I conclude saying that we have to conceive the choir as a way for learning the language and improving both soft skills and hard skills through social interaction. So I concluded my presentation, and I hope everything is clear. And if it's not, please, I'm here to answer your question. Thank you so much.
Andrea, thank you very much. The presentation was very interesting, and you see, really it's designed our attempt to contribute to this field, which is the integration of migrants with, as you say, innovative integration policies. Our initial position was try to find a way to use this cultural activity to favor migrant labor integration, at least to build the soft skills which are needed in the labor market. And I always wonder if the research is very solid, even if many examples with more number and so on, that cultural activity are good for health.
Yeah.
This is a turning point. The research of the World Organization is serving 2,000 papers, 2,000 research. Even if they have small numbers, there are so many that we can say that the result is solid.
Yeah, of course.
Given that we are not interested only on health, but we are interested in something which is different. So the type of component that you mentioned. So I would say the psychophysical indicator, the first group that you mentioned, cortisol and so on, they try to measure a dimension of the well-being of people which should have positive effect on their interrelation with the others.
Yeah.
They are less pessimistic, they become happier, they would say in everyday language, they will be more social, they will be better workers.
Yeah.
I don't know, however, even if this was my idea, if this is enough. That's when you increase the well-being of people to make them able to use this soft skill in the labor market. Is this enough or not? So I was wondering if we should think that this cultural consumption help migrant or foreigner to feel more integrated, to have more contact, to be more optimistic, to have a higher self-esteem, but they should also go together with some form of professional training. So now they understand better the communication with the other, but they should. So I was wondering if in the survey that you made, you find result or only this general improving in well-being, socialization.
Thank you for the question. So it is an interesting question because I can't provide you a total answer, because for sure I think the enhancement of this kind of soft skills through social interaction, social connection, group activity, and so on can be useful for migrants and foreigners in order to access in some way the labor market and more than access, to start understanding mechanisms already present in the society, in the labor market, and so on. But what I think is lacking in some way is the system supporting this kind of insertion, in the sense that we can provide interesting activities, providing migrants or foreigners with those kind of soft skills, hard skills. But in some way, I agree with you, it lacks a system of professionalization in some way. But I think also the institutional system or the public system is not already I don't know how to say. It is difficult for the institutional system to provide a complete understanding of the dynamics and the needs of this kind of these people. So I think this is a good starting point. Studying and assess what kind of interpersonal, intrapersonal mechanism a person can trigger, but it is the first step in order to give a more complete and all response to the phenomenon in some way. I don't understand. I don't know if I have been clear, but
Yes. Yes, because the feeling that I have is that all this research on corals is is clearly showing that there is a strong bonding inside the group.
yeah,
So a grab the people in the corals. So like if it is a football team, is the same. You can have an interdisciplinary football team, an interdisciplinary chorus. You have also bridging.
yeah.
So you have not only bonding, you have bridging, and this is positive.
Yeah.
However, when you go out and you find a job, of course, you start for a different level if you didn't have this experience. So it's helping you to transit. But if we were in a German system where the job office are able to find job, the unemployment rate is 4%, we could imagine that this increase in self-consciousness, in its ability of in creating relationship with the others, are pushing migrants also in a different sector than where they were working before. For instance, they work in agriculture, in the construction sector, in the housekeeping. Now they are more self-confident. If someone of the group is showing to them that there are possibilities in another sector, they will go.
Yeah.
But if no one of the group is providing them, and here we go back to your studies, like the governance.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I would say the functioning of the labor market, because I'm an economist, you're not an economist. And so the functioning of labor, which structure, if the employment offices are able to find employment for people, is the job match is functioning, if the unemployment rate is low, this could be a good option for transit people, to integrate people much better, to avoid over-education, segmentation, the labor market.
Yeah.
In a country like Italy, for sure they have an effect on well-being. I wonder if something else is needed to make them really usable in the labor market.
It's difficult to answer, but what I'm seeing is that also European Union is moving forward towards the responsibility to the understanding that foreigners have to took their role in the labor market. For example, a lot of projects, a lot of initiatives have been done. For example, I read a paper of Steven Vertovec, who participated also in the seminar, who affirmed that diverse work is affecting public, for example, public managers or so on, so public offices, for example. So public offices are still opening position to foreigners in order to provide services for other foreigners without their competencies. So maybe what I saw, migrants in Italy have difficult with bureaucracy, for example. So public offices.
Also Italians, not only migrants.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the system in general. So maybe a possibility could be open some position in public office, also in public, but not in public, but in private office, providing I don't know how to say, providing services oriented to diversity.
Tailored. Yes, but I think that probably instead, what I think is that this type of, as you call, innovative integration policies should be tailored, especially for the more marginal, for the people who have more difficulties in integrating in entry. Let us say the one which are linguistically far, culturally far. So I think that these policies is not a passepartout policy.
No, of course.
It's a policy that should be tailored for the group which are more marginal. In fact, the Project Back is not Project Back is not tailored for person not in need. On the contrary, it's tailored to women in need of integration, which has difficulty with integration. Romanian women probably don't need.
Yeah.
The increase of skill will be.
Yeah. At the same time, we have to consider that this kind of tailored practices or services could be politically devising. I don't know how to say, because people could people could have the perception of could be excluded by some services provided only particularly for those kind of people. Of course, it's useful to have a all-encompassing vision of the problem, but of course, it could be better if this kind of integration activity could be related and tailored on specific group of specific people with specific needs, of course.
Yes, so the one which are more difficult to integrate in general, which are more distant culturally, and thus has more problem in integration. I don't know if anyone from the audience want to intervene. I don't know if Viola has something to say. I have a question, please, Viola. Elena, could you give her the microphone? Okay.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. It's a kind of a question. Maybe it's probably more than a question. Is
A comment.
try to share with you a reflection, because I was thinking while I was listening to this very interesting presentation, I was thinking about the period of time we are going through, right? Which is an emergency, but it's an emergency which has been lasting for a while now. It's been more than 1 year. And, you know, you were talking about the back project and the choir we were supposed to run. And so I was thinking that now we are facing this emergency and the fact that everything, every activity now is online or nothing. So during this year, we were trying to cope with this situation, and we were trying to redefine the choir activity, moving the activity online, which is very tough, or trying to meeting together during when it was when we were allowed to get together by wearing our mask. So singing together, keeping the distance, wearing a mask, or doing activities online. So the big question that I'm putting on the table today, which is probably connected not only to the choir activities, but also to the consumption of cultural good in general, is how can we keep how can we keep including these people in our projects in this period of time? I mean, that's a tricky question because it's something very new that we're going through, but still.
But you are absolutely right, Viola. In this period, the marginal are even more marginal. The ones that do not have a community of reference, and the bridging is possible, but very little in cultural activity. There is a lot of bridging because association provide food to the needed people, to the needing people. They try to help mother with the children at school, at home from school. But this type of cultural activity from my side are impossible. But we hope that this period finish and that we can go back in presence, and with this try to overcome the marginality, because the people that has a computer that can work online in general are not the marginal group. I don't know, Andrea, what has to say on this question?
Yeah, no, of course, I agree with you, but in some way we hope is a passing time. So of course now the difficulty is harsh, of course, and it is difficult to imagine different kind of social groups, social activities, because for this kind of people, this kind of activities is impossible to gather and to have social interactions, because as we know, also find places in which have a gathering or a rehearsal is difficult. Of course, we can find different ways to cope with this. For example, I saw a lot of activities did in parks or in open spaces, and maybe could be also a way to restart having this kind of activity, and I don't know, maybe restarting this kind of process where before COVID-19 was pressing. So I think there is a difficult period, of course, but we can find different way to provide social interaction and integration activities in some way.
Viola, yes, maybe we should not also start thinking of new way to involve people. Yes, let me read on the chat. Viola is saying, maybe we should also start thinking of new way of involving these people in case emergency lasts, but it is very difficult to matter. Yes, but the main problem is that there are people that use, that has a computer that can use video or not. And this is in general, from what I know, the people that use computer and video are not the more marginal. I can be wrong anyhow. We should think this is not in our hand. because we study what the other are doing. We are not producing, it's more in your hand, Viola, that you produce a program and show for inclusion.
Yes, you're right. You're totally right. Yeah.
We can help you, you can discuss with us, but we are unable to at least me, Andrea, likely, but so
No,
if
yeah.
there are no other question, I will very happy to close the seminar series, thanking all the person that has helped us in organizing this. First of all, Elena Bignoli, who is taking care of all the registration, the transformation of the file, and the put it on the chair web, on the on the YouTube section of the chair web. La redazione Paulo Clay, who has supported us in thousands of ways, from drawing the pictures or helping us all the time. Roberta Piccati, who has drawn the pictures, which are fantastic, very elegant and sophisticated, and all the administrative people that in campus has helped us to produce this. So thank you, everybody. This is the end of this series seminar, Cocumint. They will start again next year. This is the 2021 series seminar, the first one. Next year they will have a new series. I invite you, all of you, to follow this again. Thank you very much. Bye.